For the wealthy, health is the new wealth. Longevity, wellness, and health span are now the ultimate luxuries. Equinox has built the one true luxury brand in fitness. Harvey Spevak is the executive chairman, expanding the brand into hotels, treatments, and international markets. I'm Robert Frank, and this is Inside Wealth. Harvey, thank you so much for having us here at the Equinox gym in Hudson Yards. It's hard for me to be here and not work out because I see all these people working out. Very busy today.
Well, thanks for having me, and maybe we should work out after this conversation.
We'll do that. So you're really the only true luxury brand in fitness, and you're also at the lead of this huge trend we've been seeing for years, but really accelerating, where fitness, wellness, and longevity have really become the new wealth, certainly popular among the wealthy. And you had a quote recently that caught my attention. You said, wealthier gym members have an almost unlimited amount of discretionary income for health right now. So what are you seeing in the business, particularly as it relates to the high-end consumer that you're focused on?
Exactly what I said in that quote is, what's happening is there's a lot of buzzwords out there. There's the buzzword of wellness. What does that mean? Soon to be a $9 trillion category, but that includes a lot of things: medicine, insurance, and what have you. And then you've got the longevity. It's almost like the words of days of corporate synergy. Like, nobody really understands what those words mean. And so what we've always believed when we talk about Equinox, we talk about how do you live a high-performance lifestyle. And from a science perspective, and everything is grounded in science, we have an acronym called MNRC. You live a high-performance lifestyle, and this is what the longevity gurus, the true gurus, will say is the most important things you do. Movement, right? Working out, being active, whatever your flavor is. And I don't like the word nutrition, but nourishment. Or recovery, which is becoming more common in what you're seeing now. And C is community. We're social creatures, and we need to be amongst each other. And so what we're seeing is the consumer has moved from a little bit of the product economy, to particularly luxury consumer, to an experiential. They're still buying the luxury products, right. And you see all the European fashion houses and the luxury houses in the world all trying to figure out how to play the experience game to different degrees.
Yeah.
But now they're saying, well, but the number one thing in the experience economy, besides travel, that the consumer wants is, how do I live a high-performance lifestyle? How do I live a healthy lifestyle? How do I focus on not just my lifespan, the words we've heard, health span, and for us, we talk about, it's more about energy and vitality. So that consumer will do almost anything within reason to different degrees. And I'm sure you have friends, I have friends, will take any pill if someone says that's going to add blank to, like, without any research. And then you have some who say, tell me more. But you see it manifesting so many ways. You see it not just in terms of how people engaging and living a healthy lifestyle, what they're eating, the recovery, the contrast therapy, which is obviously very common and table stakes at this point. You're seeing this now not just in biomarkers, and we have a partnership with Function Health and Dr. Mark Hyman, and that obviously manifests through Equinox Optimize as well, but you're seeing it now in peptides as well. So even at our hotel, if I told you the number of IV drips we do on a daily basis, it would blow your mind. It's a
Is that to guests or non-guests?
Both.
Both.
But
IV drips.
Just IV drips in one location is a 7-figure business. One location. So the point is that people are looking for ways to feel good about themselves. And obviously, we've always wanted to look good.
Right.
And so as more research becomes available, it's a little bit of the Wild West. You have to be careful and think about safe and effective. But there's huge demand, and it's only going to accelerate.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I've been covering wealth for 20 years, and one of the biggest changes I've seen, it's not about what you own, it's about how you feel. Now, why do you think that's changed? What's underpinning this shift in spending, this shift in attention, this shift in capital toward health, wellness, longevity, sort of, again, you could call it experiences, which is part of that as well, away from things?
I think it's a number of things. I think if you think about pre-COVID, it was starting to happen, and then we all got frozen in an extended moment of time, and the only way we can satisfy our taste for newness was through buying stuff.
Right.
And we all started buying a lot of stuff. But what we wanted to be with each other and experience new and unique things. And so that, from a consumer perspective, has been there. But the other thing is we've all become more focused on our health and well-being. Even just from a day-to-day basis, not getting sick as much and what have you. Coming out of COVID, be more aware. So people are taking better care of themselves, And the population is aging. We're sticking around longer, and nobody wants to stick around longer in a sedentary way. Right. They want us to continue to lead a healthy and active lifestyle. So, you can talk about health is the new wealth, but really, health is the new luxury. And there's a big badge of honor when you can sit here and point, I do this, I do that. I mean, you and I had this little conversation before we started this conversation about how people are thinking about it, how they want to be perceived, and ultimately what they're doing.
So how do you tap into that as a company? Obviously, you were way ahead in thinking about not a gym, but a true luxury fitness center, a club, a community. What are some things that you've done recently that bring that further? Maybe a little bit about the hotel, about Optimize. And then what are some other things down the road that you could even picture Equinox expanding into?
So I would say it's always been about delivering a luxury lifestyle and a unique experience. So you mentioned we're in this category of one, and that's always how we've thought about it. And so in doing that, we've always looked for inspiration from other aspects of life. So how our consumer, like through ethnography, is engaging in other aspects of life, and how do we bring that to the Equinox experience? And one of the things we saw back, around 10 years ago, is we saw our members staying at inferior hotels when they were on the road because it was so important for them to get their Equinox experience in as part of their daily routine. And so that was the light bulb that said, well, instead of us partnering with all the hotels that were coming to us and said, hey, can you brand this little gym and tap into your brand equity? We said, well, wait a second, we should just do this ourselves. Yeah. We're already in the hospitality business. And when we built the hotel, we said, let's not just build another nice hotel. That's important, and we want it to be luxurious and service-oriented, but how do we bring the M&RC ethos to the hotel? So how do you have, a great, you'll use the word gym, we'll use the word club, but where you can really be active with the local community? So we've got the 60,000 square foot club here that does very well, which you have said is, sometimes too crowded because it's been so successful for us. Good problem. And then you say, how do you have clean food? Not necessarily just Brussels sprouts on a plate. You can indulge, but clean food, and we did that with Steven Starr. And then we built more of a performance recovery spa. But on the recovery side, the big key was how do you create almost like a sleep chamber as the room? So make it really well appointed, beautiful, and all the luxury items and touch points that you expect, but how do you make it for an ideal sleep environment? So we consulted with some sleep experts, and we created this sleep environment. What makes for an ideal sleep environment is quiet, dark, cold. And so there's like one button in the room that you can hit, and you go full blackout, no bleeding lights, no little lights. We took those out of the room, and it goes 66 degrees. And you hear our guests saying, we get the best sleep we've ever gotten at your hotel. Now we've got rooms that we call sleep labs that have taken it a step further that we introduced last summer, which have been wildly popular. When you look at all that, it's different. It's a unique experience relative to other hotels. And the press has been very kind to us, almost embarrassing how much the accolades. But we're now the rate leader oftentimes in New York. And it's a who's who of stays with us, from Fortune 100 CEOs and boards to you name the A-lister from Hollywood. So then there comes the community and the local community. So oftentimes when you leave a hotel, because you don't want to be with a fellow business traveler, we have the local community using the restaurant, using the spa. And so when you add all that up, it creates another unique lifestyle experience. So as we progress, you're going to see more from a hospitality perspective in terms of hotels. And then you're going to see more programming on the longevity side, including starting to push harder into biometrics and biomarkers. And so what you do is blood work, partnership with function. And based on that, that will inform, and this is something I've been doing for almost 20 years, this will inform how we coach you to work out, eat, recover, and then of course, community is a little bit on your own.
So right now, it's just the one hotel, right, that you have? How many 5-10 years from now, how many could you possibly have?
We in the next, I would say 7-8 years, we should have close to a dozen hotels.
Wow.
The next one that we're going to open, we have a pretty big pipeline of hotels and clubs. The next hotel we're going to open is in the Red Sea of Saudi Arabia. That will open in the spring.
Why is that number 2?
Big demand in the Mideast region, broadly defined, for luxury, lifestyle, longevity, wellness, and there's only one brand that has the authority that we do. And what's interesting when you travel to the Middle East, which I do frequently, is a lot of the locals have been members of ours when they've educated in the US. They live in New York, they live in Boston, they live in LA. So there's a high level of brand awareness.
Huh.
So we have our first hotel coming in Saudi in the spring. We have 2 more under development. We have another one they have announced in another country, and another one coming. And then we have, some hotels coming domestically. So we've announced in the Caribbean, Anguilla, which will come in about 3 or 4 years. But all of these are ground up developments because we want to make sure we can deliver the unique Equinox experience and not take on someone else's problems or habits. And so it'll take a little bit of time. And then separately, we have a pipeline of 40 plus club locations because there's a lot of demand there, particularly our new locations have done extremely well for us. We opened our first one in San Diego yesterday, which is 2+X of what we thought we'd open in terms of initial member count. So there's a lot going on right now in a very positive way.
And what parts of the country do you see the most opportunity for in terms of new clubs?
So it's a combination of more in existing markets.
Okay.
Fun fact, we're the largest retailer by square footage in Manhattan. And we just opened another location in Manhattan last November. And we've got probably a couple more coming, as I mentioned. So it's building out existing markets where there continues to be demand as demos and psychos change. And then there's new markets that we don't exist. So we opened our first in Seattle last year. We opened our first in San Diego last year. We're opening our first in Nashville in the fall. And so you'll see some of new markets and existing markets, but you'll also see outside the US. So we're opening another one in Toronto later this year. But as we all know, there's been a lot of movement down to the South. So markets where we haven't been in before, the Charlottes, I mentioned Nashville, South Florida is probably going to become our 3rd biggest market in the United States. We opened in West Palm Beach in November, another huge success for us, 2.5 times where we thought we'd open from a member count perspective. So we've got a lot coming.
And you also announced fairly recently the new Optimize program. Tell us about that, how it's doing. Give us an update on where that is.
So Optimize is doing what I mentioned before. We draw blood in partnership with Function, establish your biomarkers, and then we have a team of coaches led by a concierge coach. So you have what people refer to as a personal trainer coach, a nutrition coach, a sleep coach, to help you through that MNRC, because those are the most important things that the gurus once again will tell you can inform a long, healthy lifestyle. Even though younger people are now wanting that today more than ever, which is an interesting another phenomenon.
Yeah.
And so we launched that. It went viral thanks to people like yourself. That was not the intent because we weren't honestly fully ready to launch it around the country because each state has different regulations around taking blood and what have you.
And it was expensive, $40,000 a year. You wouldn't think there would be that many initially people to try it.
Well, thanks to your friend Andrew Orsurkin, he was out there saying, without us asking him to say, I think there's real value there when you break apart the pieces.
Right.
And that is a good example of there's insatiable appetite, as long as it's safe and effective. And so, we have over 1,000 people on the wait list.
Wow.
We've got people doing the program now in Dallas and in LA, and we'll roll out more. And then more recently, an interesting new program, we're very focused on the women's side. About 50% of our membership is women. And most
your overall membership.
Overall.
Okay.
And most programs are a little bit more through the lens of a male.
Yeah.
And so we see an opportunity really to lean into supporting women in all of their needs. So we introduced something called Equinox ARC, which is a customized program with coaches who are certified through our own education program and catering specifically to women, using biomarkers, using data to inform how they work out, and then of course rinse and repeat to track the results.
And so how does that manifest, the program to women, how does that manifest? Is it really just in terms of having people who are specialized on the marker side and on the personal training side with women?
Yes. I mean, so we literally have our own education program specific to this program. We have our own proprietary education program in lots of aspects of how we train our coaches, but this is one is specifically how do you coach women? So it's women for women. And that's another one where we had huge response and we have 1,500 people on the wait list. So we're real excited about what that's doing.
That's amazing. And beyond those, are there any other co-branding opportunities? I know we've seen a boom in private clubs. I mean, you're a club, and particularly this location feels like a private club where the unifying theme and interest is fitness. But are there brand extensions, areas you could go beyond the ones you've mentioned so far?
So there's a bunch of obvious adjacencies, right? Whether it's what you wear or vitamins, minerals, and supplements, and we're definitely looking at a lot of those other opportunities. And there's down the road concierge medicine and more travel and more resort travel, not just urban like we have the urban resort here, and retreats. And so all of those are part of things you're going to hear more about from us in the coming months and in the coming years. But what I think is really interesting is, we live in a world, and I'm a consumer brand guy, when you live in a world where you got to anticipate what the consumer wants. And there's so much happening with partnerships and brand collabs. And so when you think about the economy moving from a product economy to an experience economy, a lot of big consumer companies are saying, well, how do I continue to serve my consumer in health and wellness, and who do I talk to? And there's truly, one brand that has the authority and the brand equity. So we're having a lot of conversations, not necessarily things I'm going to disclose right now, but there's a lot of exciting things in the works.
Now, from an opportunity point of view, obviously you've got a lot of great plans, a lot of opportunities. From a capital perspective, I know back in 2024, you had a $1.8 billion refinancing involved a lot of people like 6th Street, Silver Lake, Ares, obviously El Caterton. That's going to hold you for a while, I'd imagine. But how do you see the need for capital going forward? Is there ever an opportunity to look again at an IPO or anything like that?
It's funny. Every time I come on CNBC,
every time, because we want to cover your stock.
And I always give you the same. I always give you the same answer. Look, there's a lot of interest. COVID was tough for us. And I remember defending about whether people would come back in real life on one of the shows. And I said, maybe it was naivety at the time or just being a passionate believer. And I said, yes, and look what's happened. And so our business last year was a record year. This year will be even a bigger year in 26. And so there's a lot of interest from domestic players as well as global players from the financial community to partner with us, invest with us, what have you. And we're always obviously listening to those. There's no, I'm going to say the same thing, there's no near-term plans to go public, but we'll certainly let you know if that changes.
Great, that'd be great. And then to your personal regimen, I know what I love about you also is that you try a lot of stuff. Obviously, you exercise, you follow all the rules that you just mentioned about recovery and sleep. What are some things out there that you've discovered in your own personal regimen that you think, because there's a lot of garbage out there as well, what are some things that you think work and are other people worth knowing about?
So, how much time do you have? No, there's a lot of things. And look, everything comes through us, through me, because of who we are and because I do, both for the reasons of my role at Equinox, but also because I love understanding all this stuff, including I did a call today with a new firm that does studies your environment at home to better understand whether you're in a healthy environment, how can they help you with air quality or water quality, or if you have mold. I mean, there's always mold, it's like to different degrees. So that's another thing that I'm gonna go through just to understand. But I will only do things that I think are safe and effective. So I'll listen to everything, but I'm not the friend who's just gonna pop the pill just because someone says pop the pill. I went in the rabbit hole of some peptide stuff and I couldn't find research that reinforced that, at least the peptides I was considering, even though I have some friends doing it, that reinforced that it was safe and effective. It might be eventually, but I haven't done it yet. With that said, I do IV drips at the hotel. I used to oddly do it in my office during meetings, and so I would have a nurse come in and just poke me. And
during the meeting?
During the meeting. I would only do internal meetings. I wouldn't do it with outsiders. And then finally I said, okay, it's a little weird, so I now do it at the hotel.
Once a week? Once a month?
I do it once every 1 to 2 weeks.
Okay.
It's really just about hydration. It's pretty safe stuff.
Okay.
I do take, you'll appreciate this, I do take the biggest needle they can so it goes faster because I want to get in and get out. Yeah. Sleep, I swear by. I think that people misunderstand sleep. No matter how much research out there, you can't get enough sleep. The consistency of sleep, 7-8 hours is super important. It changes everything. I'm a big believer in Eat Sleep for the bed, if you're familiar with that. I think it's a great product, so hats off to them. No interest in that, but I'm just,
okay. I was wondering if you guys invest in there.
No. We do have them in our sleep labs in the hotel.
Okay.
But I just think what they're doing is great. And then more recently, I did some blood work where I had my blood basically cleansed from plastics and chemicals and what have you. When I did that, the procedure that I did is not FDA approved in the US yet. It will be this year, most likely, and we will probably be then providing that as another extension.
What is that process called?
So basically what they do is...
It's not like plasma,
there's different versions, it's not PRP. So basically there's different versions, but in this one, they poke you in both arms, like basically think about IVs. And basically what they do is they take your blood out, separate the platelets, cleanse them in almost like a cylinder column, and then put the blood back in. And I did that when this place first opened in London. They charged $10,000. And I will tell you, my energy and clarity for months after that was phenomenal.
For months?
For months.
Because one thing we hear about plasma and all the centrifuge technologies is it lasts like a couple days. Months.
Now, this was me. This was my personal experience.
Wow.
And sometimes with these things, you never know what's the placebo effect or not. But, you know, I think that was money extremely well spent.
Great. Anything else that you recommend from a health perspective that you've come across or you think will become more common in the years ahead?
Look, I think that some of this stuff is definitely faddish. You know, cryotherapy was, you know, we have it here at the hotel, but you know, was super hot, and now it's, you know, about contrast therapy, which has been around, if you think about it, for years. Saunas are not new. You know, cold, you know, athletes jumping in a bucket of cold ice, you know, particularly football players after a game beating up. None of that stuff's new, but that's still very, you know, hot right now. I do think there's going to be a move to safe and effective, because what you're seeing is, particularly with some of the stuff out there, it stimulates your growth hormone. So some people are taking growth hormone, and then you have some things that stimulate your growth hormone, and that might stimulate cancer cells in your body, and then bad things come. So I do think there'll be a move to who's credible, who's not. Like peptides, it's all through compound pharmacies.
Yeah.
So who do you trust and who don't you trust? So I think that as people get smarter, there'll be even more interest in taking the right vitamin or doing the right drip or the next version of GLP-1, whatever it will be. We have a big GLP-1 program, by the way. We don't administer, but we help people that are on GLP-1.
Well, and to that point, I was going to ask you, has that, there were some expectations that would not kill gyms, but certainly change the business, because suddenly they didn't have to go to a luxury fitness center like Equinox and lose weight. They could just do it with a pill. How has that changed the business?
For us, complete opposite. Now, there's some players out there that are administering it, which we don't agree with. We're not doctors, and we don't want to try to be doctors. With that said, what has happened with certainly our target consumer, more the luxury consumer, what they've realized, and all the research proves this, is it's great to start a program. If you're overweight or in some cases obese, it's really important. So anything that can help kickstart, fantastic. But you need to complement with lifestyle change. So how you eat, how you work out. If you don't, there's all kinds of side effects that are well documented. So it actually has gone the other way. It's actually encouraged a lot of people to establish a good, healthy training regimen. And that's where our expertise comes in.
And will you get involved in the actual administration of it or any other part of the food chain of GLP-1s?
At this moment, we're staying away from it. But we will do, you know, once again, we'll help you if you're on it, because we've educated our coaches of how to work with someone who's on it and what their training program should look like.
And lastly, in terms of what trends you're seeing in the clubs themselves, what's popular, what kinds of new members are you seeing, what are you seeing in terms of the demographics, psychographics of memberships, what activities seem to be surging in popularity, how is social media affecting some of that?
Oh, social media is having a big influence on, as you and I talked about before we went on air, about the influencer and how people, the posing and the shirt off and all that fun stuff. Here's what I'd say is, it's really interesting. It used to be that if you were young in your 20s or even early 30s, let's just say in New York for a second, on a Thursday or Friday night, you went out with your friends, had some fun, you know, hopefully not get into any trouble, eat something bad at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, a New York slice of pizza, a burger, whatever it is, stay on the couch the next day, rinse and repeat. And that was your Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. Now it's, let's go have dinner. Maybe we'll have a couple of glasses of wine or 1 glass of wine, but I want to be in bed. This is from the young people. I want to be in bed by 11, 12 o'clock because I want to go with my favorite, my partner, my bestie. I want to be with my community the next morning in an Equinox class, right, with my favorite instructor. So that has become a lot more of the social outlet than what used to be. So everybody knows drinking is way down. I think that's a big part of it. So we're definitely getting a little bit younger, which is great. People are not aging out. And then also older people. So we've always had a pretty broad range. Our median age is closer to late 30s, which is surprising for a lot of people. But in terms of modalities, everything and anything Pilates is still very hot. Strength training is definitely a lot of movement from cardio training to strength training. So
both women and men?
Women and men. And part of the education around women is more women need to do that. But if you see, I mean, you go in our clubs, I mean, there's a lot more strength training. We're actually continuing to increase the size of our strength training floors and shrink the cardio count. Now, I think that will change because cardio is so important, but people during COVID found the great outdoors. So again, there's a lot more cardio going outside than inside.
Yeah.
But I would say, you know, some of the biggest trends. And then the other piece is community. People want to be with like-minded people. So when they're not out drinking as late, they want to find other ways to socialize. You know, we did this spoof on April Fool's a couple years ago about Equinox having a dating app, and it was one of the most popular things we've ever done on social media because people are like, wait, you're tricking us? Why are you not doing this? So we are building bigger and bigger lounges in our clubs because people want to. They're working differently. They're socializing different. They want to meet someone who's like-minded, who's healthy. And so people are hanging out more. And so we've created these Equinox dens that are pretty sizable and comfortable and good for working or socializing, whatever it be. So that's the other big trend.
Great. Harvey, thanks so much for having us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.